right, Professor Haney. So I've looked at the first 4 pages, and now what I need to do is look at the instructions for the essay so that I can do that outline. So let's go ahead and just take a really quick look at the instructions for Essay 5, and of course so that you can know what is due for the first and second rough draft. Right, so we will glance at modules and scroll down for the instructions for Essay 5, which is here. Alrighty, so here are the instructions for Essay 5, the research paper. So typical instructions, right? We're looking now at gender roles, right? And you need to do outside research. Again, you do need to have at least 6 sources from the library assignment, and then 2 sources for the readings in the Hacker book. So 6 outside sources total, and then 2 from They Say, I Say. And you'll be putting those sources in the Works Cited page in your first 4, but also using them for your essay with your introduction. Same thing, the hook. But now what you're going to be doing is in your introductory paragraph summarizing the ideas you'll discuss, the background, meaning definition, history, any important information you'll be discussing, for example, defining the solution, and then for your thesis, your opinion on the solution, will it work? And then, of course, your support, the reasons for your solution, and then, of course, objections and refutations, and then, of course, body paragraphs for each of these topics. Here's a trusty outline, and I just wanted to notice something with you. For the outline, there's a hook, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 backgrounds, right? And it's just my suggestions here, right? The definition of the problem maybe, or the definition of what the solution is, descriptions of the problem or the solution, maybe some important history on the subject of gender and inequality, and maybe misconceptions people have about the topic of gender inequality. For example, I see a lot of people think gender inequality has to do with homosexuality, and of course, in a lot of cases, that's not it at all. Your thesis, right, which is the evaluation, will the solution work or not? And then notice there's 1, 2, 3, 4 reasons for the solution, and then objection, refutation, another objection and refutation, an alternative solution, and a statement of why the original solution's better. Now I want to pause here and say that sometimes students ask, can we do 6 reasons and support, and then 1 objection and 1 refutation, 1 alternative solution, and 1 statement of why the original solution's better? And you can do that, or you can do 2 objections and 2 refutations, or 2 alternative solutions and 2 statements of why the original solution's better. You have some flexibility in there. And I will put that someplace else in writing. And then here's your body paragraphs, and then of course your conclusion. What I do want to pause here to talk about now is extra credit. For extra credit, I am totally willing to give extra credit on this assignment. Definitely what many students do is the 4 minimum background paragraphs, and then they add a 5th. The body paragraphs, if you've done the math, it's 10 paragraphs of reasons, objections, and refutations, or alternative viewpoints. And what some students do is add an extra reason in there. So that instead of doing, for example, 4 reasons, 2 objections, 2 refutations, an alternative viewpoint, and a statement of why the original solution's better, they'll do 5 reasons, 2 objections, 2 refutations, 1 alternative solution, and 1 statement of why the original solution's better, that kind of thing. And then I also see students tacking on an additional refutation and an additional statement of why this original solution's better. So you can do up to 4 extra paragraphs total: background, reason, alternative viewpoint, and refutation, or why the original solution's better. Of course, that adds extra points in the intro and in the conclusion as well for each one. And another thing I want to talk about is extra credit, a half point each for headings. So let's take a look at that. This information comes from Hacker's Rules for Writers. And if you turn and look on page 465, you will see this interesting passage. MLA neither encourages nor discourages the use of headings and provides no real guidelines for their use. If you'd like to insert headings into a long essay or research paper, check first with your instructor. Well, here's me telling you, you are totally allowed to use headings, and for this assignment only, I will give extra credit, a half point for each one. Hacker's book, it is full of examples of headings, right? You can see here a chapter heading in big blue writing, sub components, right? Subgroups in the chapters with a slightly smaller black, and then within that category, even smaller blue. You don't need to go crazy with color for your research paper, but this is just some examples I've seen students do. So what most of my students do here is insert headings starting with their introduction, starting with, for example, all uppercase, bold, the introduction, and then a subsection. Now, something really important that I want you to notice here for your research paper is that your introductory paragraph is broken up into 3 paragraphs. Because it's going to be really long, right? Because you have 4 backgrounds, 6 reasons, an objection and refutation, and an alternative viewpoint, and a statement of why the original solution is better. So it's going to make it super long. So what many of my students do to get that extra credit is the introduction, and then a subheading for background. And then in the introduction, another thing for introduction and the thesis and reasons. And then another section on the introduction for alternative viewpoints. And then going into the body paragraphs, they do new topics. So they'll say, this is my background. And sometimes they'll even do things like, for example, background 1 for their first things for history. And then maybe they'll do background 2, for example, for definitions, that kind of thing. And then, a subsection for that background paragraph. And then sometimes you'll even see background or background 3 for another background piece of information. And then when you get your 4 backgrounds, then they sometimes go into their reasons and support. So you'll see things like reasons 1 in uppercase and bold, and then the subheading for the topic. Which does not replace the topic sentence. It just gives the reader information on where we're at. And then things like reason 2, right? And then after you get your reasons, we can go into, where did I put it? Yikes. I thought I put an alternative viewpoint in here. Let me see if I found it. How embarrassing. Professor, there it is, alternative viewpoints, right? So you can get extra credit, a half point for each heading or subheading that you insert into your research paper. So as you look ahead, notice next week, Monday and Wednesday, you want to be making sure you have your first rough draft started. So, you got to get those first 4 pages done. Having that outline set up and your note cards done definitely will help you to plug that information in to your body paragraphs and your outline, and sort of kind of plan your essay around those cards. And then for your first rough draft, notice the big shocker. It's 10 paragraphs for the first rough draft and self-review, and it's 15 paragraphs for the second rough draft and peer review. Now, a lot of that is because it's a 20-paragraph essay, but also remember your introduction's 3 paragraphs now. So for your self-review, the first rough draft is your 3 introductory paragraphs and 7 body paragraphs, and your second type draft for the peer review is 3 introductory paragraphs and 12 body paragraphs, and that will get you set up really close to being done because your final draft is 20 paragraphs. So if you've already got 12 bodies and 3 for your intro, you only need to come up with 5 more, and your conclusion is also 3 paragraphs. So it'll help you a lot. Just as a reminder, the system automatically arranges the peer reviews. And if you submit your peer review at 9 o'clock at night when I'm in bed, I can't assign you a peer review. So please get your second typed rough drafts in on time. It's open for 24 hours. You have 24 hours to put it in. It's supposed to be due at 8 o'clock in the morning for the peer review. So every 30 minutes it's late, it loses a letter grade. And the system assigns you the peer review at noon, right? So if you haven't gotten your rough draft in, it's already lost 4 letter grades. And if you're in my Monday, Wednesday class, it's due at 9:45. So it assigns you the reviews at noon. So if you haven't got it in, it's already lost, a bunch of letter grades. So make sure you get it in by noon so that you don't lose points. And then actually, if you get it in it's supposed to be in at 8 for my Friday class. So if you don't get it in before 12, it's already an F. And if you don't get it in for my Monday, Wednesday class by 9:45, and it loses letter grades by noon, it's already lost 4 letter grades. So you want to make sure, because that's already an F. Actually, it's a D. So you want to make sure it's in by noon, and then the system, not me, assigns you a peer reviewer at noon, and then you have until 11:59, so 12 hours to submit your peer review. So please get those in on time. So this is an option that's not including extra credit. This is the body paragraph for the essay. And as you look at this, you'll notice no matter what, these are 14 body paragraphs. With your intro being 3 and your conclusion being 3, that gives you a total of 20 paragraphs. In both options, notice that there are 4 backgrounds. And option 1 over here has 4 reasons, and then a 5th and 6th reason: objection 1, refutation 1, alternative solution 1, and why the original solution's better. Option 2 over here also has 14 paragraphs, also has 4 backgrounds, but instead of having 6 reasons, it has 4, and then has 2 objections and 2 refutations, and then original solution and why the original is better. Both of these are options for the minimum of paragraphs, and as a matter of fact, I'm even open to students doing 4 reasons, 1 objection, 1 refutation, 2 alternative solutions, and 2 statements of why the original is better. But I didn't put it on here because I could see that being confusing for you. And here are the extra credit options. As you notice, these are the maximum offers for extra credit that you can do. You don't have to do all of them, but I know some of you are like, please give me a ton of extra credit. And of course, if you're adding headings for each of these, that's a half a point to a whole point if you have 2 headings each per extra credit, right? And notice in both cases, the essay still has 4 original background paragraphs. And in either option, you're just adding 1 additional background paragraph for a total of 5. Option 1 is that original one that had 6 reasons in support, where you see that red extra 5th and 6th reason. You can do 1 extra reason for a total of 7. And then you can do 1 extra alternative viewpoint in the form of an objection or a refutation. Now, I have had students ask me, can't I do 1 objection, 1 refutation, 2 alternative solutions, and 2 statements of why the original solution is better? So having, instead of objection 2 and refutation 2, an alternative solution 2 and why the original is better 2, I'm open to that. Option 2 extra credit is the same thing. 4 background paragraphs. Notice that no matter what, it's originally 4 background, and adding a 5th background paragraph. This is the option where there's only 4 reasons in support. If you want to do a 5th reason, you can for extra credit. And then notice this is one where the original essay has 2 objections and 2 refutations as the original part of the essay, and then an alternative solution why the original is better. I'll let you add an additional alternative solution and why the original is better. I just noticed those are marked 1 in the extra credit. They should be 2. But and in this case, it would be weird to have 3 objections and 3 refutations, but if you wanted to do that instead, I would be open to it. But as you can see in either case, it's a maximum of 4 extra credit paragraphs. This is just to make it clear too, so that you don't get confused on what the objections and refutations are.